Hey everybody, Andy from ARM Procurement Advisors. We help real estate developers, investors, owners, and property management firms to select, specify, source, negotiate, and purchase products and services to maintain their properties and for their construction projects a little bit better than they were before. I wanted to just touch on something that came up in a meeting today that I was at earlier this morning, and I just real quickly think it's worth talking about on a product standpoint, and that's lighting. There's a lot of bad information out there. A lot of the information that's out there is because the manufacturers themselves are putting the bad information out there. And I wanted to kind of circle around and have a quick discussion about what's being used in properties now in the US and what should be, in my opinion, being used, and kind of what we recommend when we give some guidance to a company that's looking for the right product to use for either a green up sustainability project or a construction project or even a massive gut and renovation. So, without further ado, here we go. The first thing I want to talk about is CFLs. Now, CFLs have been around for a long time. They really took over as the first solution when incandescent bulbs were no longer able to be manufactured in the same quantities that they were. And there's, over the last, call it 10 years, there's been a lot of pushback on just how effective CFLs are at saving money. Now, when this all started, the big savings was 30 to 70% reduction in power being used versus incandescent bulbs. 100% true. Can't argue it. It's there. It's reality. The other part that was being sold was return on investment from lower energy costs. Not true. Not with CFLs. From a risk management standpoint, as a property owner or manager, the mercury exposure lawsuit risk is ridiculous. You have to treat these things with kid gloves, and they're fragile. They die from being turned on and off too rapidly or too frequently during a period of time, and they just stink out loud. There's no nice way to say it. They break too frequently. Advertised life is 5 to 7 years and up to 10,000 hours. In reality, I can't think of a single one that I've ever seen last longer than 3 years in a normal residential home. Between the mercury exposure risk, or more importantly, the risk of a frivolous lawsuit involving mercury exposure, and the fact that you have to take extra care and cost for recycling, CFLs just don't work out. Yes, they're cheaper than LEDs today. But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when the law passed, people were complaining about how much more money CFLs were than incandescent bulbs. Well, now CFLs cost about what an incandescent used to cost back then. It's supply and demand. But if you're in property management of any kind, get the CFLs out of your building. They're not doing any favors at this point. So what is doing you favors, potentially anyway, is the LED market. Now, LEDs are still expensive compared to CFLs. You don't have a choice. You have to use one or the other. LED bulbs offer a few different things. From a design standpoint, you get a ton of different color temperatures. You get sizes that fit into fixtures that the curly Q bulbs could never fit into. You get a multitude of different manufacturers, quick availability and turn time. There's a ton of them out there. Your mileage may vary. Some brands suck, some brands don't. You got to play it by ear and see what works best for the environment you're in. LEDs, they're advertised, again, incorrectly, and maybe not completely truthfully, as being the one-stop solution for your lighting needs. Well, not necessarily true. Shocking, I know. The reality is that they advertise 10,000 hours plus of lifespan and anywhere from 10 years to I've seen 500,000 hours in 25 years advertised. I have a really hard time believing it because I just haven't seen it in the field. Again, they haven't been out long enough to tell whether or not they're going to last 25 years. So we just have to kind of play it by ear until then and hope that we're putting the right products into these projects that will last for our clients. Here's the deal. The LED stands for light emitting diode. The LED itself might last 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million hours, whatever they advertise. It's potentially true. What they're not saying when they advertise it is a few things. First, that light emitting diode lifespan is for the diode itself. It's not for all the other parts inside that bulb that make it go. In America, we have 120 volt AC power. LEDs typically are designed to run 12 volts DC. That's where they're happiest. That's how they last the longest. The parts that fail in your LEDs are the driver or the transformer that takes that 120 volts AC and steps it down to 12 volts DC. So when you're installing these bulbs into the property, you need to watch for a few things. Manufacturers' lifespans are assuming it gets turned on once a day for 3 hours a day, and it's left alone, and then turned off. It also assumes an industry standard 3% failure rate. Failure rate's not 3%. And then it also assumes perfect environmental conditions, which means clean power coming out of the wall. We're in America. We hear it all the time that our power grid stinks and that we need to upgrade it because of X, Y, and Z reason. It's all politics, I don't care. But they're not wrong. We have dirty power. Brownouts, blackouts, surges, all things that can affect the lifespan. Perfect environmental conditions, temperature, airflow, like open fixtures versus closed fixtures, moisture levels, and then pattern of use. So manufacturers are already out because there's pretty much nowhere in the country that you can go and you can hit the number of one switch on per day for 3 hours, turning it off and leaving. Real failure rate in the field is closer to 20%. And it's closer to 20% because there's no perfect environment that you can install these things. And it's just the reality of the world we're in that you're never going to see the advertised lifespan on these products, and you have to plan that into your budget. It's reality. You can't get around it until they improve their process flow and improve development and spend another who knows how many millions or billions of dollars on developing better LEDs. We're stuck with the way things are, which means that those transformers and drivers are going to fail prematurely based on use. That's just the way it is. So they do use way less energy, like 90% less than what an incandescent did, and less than half in some cases what a CFL did, but usually they're 20 to 30% less energy than a CFL did for the same amount of light. They don't lose brightness as quickly as a CFL does, so CFLs will have their lumens of output will decrease by 40 to 50% before they even reach half of their life being used. Where LEDs, it's closer to like 10 or 15% over the half-life of decrease in lumens output. You get better color selection, better fitting bulbs for the fixtures, and you have the opportunity to really capture some ROI on these things once they're installed versus CFLs where you're just sending good money after bad. Now, what I did want to talk about is in the last 5 years, there has been an increase in these integrated LED panels and fixtures where you basically have a built-in light-emitting diode with all of the back-end components to convert 120 AC down to 12 volt DC, or whatever that LED's been designed to use. And those fixtures are being put into residential and commercial units. It's a terrible idea for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to go into a couple real quick ones, and you can decide for yourself. Assuming they advertise similar lifespans, which they do. They say, oh, you buy the fixture and you're going to save on money because you get more light output per watt. So instead of having to use 2 bulbs, you're using 1 bulb, and your wattage is the same as a 1 bulb, or maybe a little bit more. But either way, they're saying you get more energy savings based on that. Well, that's true. You do. Can't argue it. It's math. What I can argue is that the lifespan doesn't increase at all because there is no perfect environment where these things are being used. And if you're putting an integrated fixture in a closet, bathroom, kitchen, any place where the light gets turned on and off multiple times a day in a residential unit, or even in commercial units, you're going to have that fixture fail in the same amount of time that a bulb would have failed. So your fixture costs you anywhere from $20 to I've seen $300 integrated fixtures versus $5 for a light bulb. So just on raw product, it makes no sense to use an integrated fixture. Regardless of what your savings are. I don't care where you're coming from or how much your electricity costs per watt. It doesn't work out. It just doesn't. Same lifespan, 4 to 5 times more to replace one than the other. It's not working out in my head. Then you have to take the labor involved versus handing your tenant a light bulb or a box of light bulbs that you keep in the unit and letting them change it when it dies. Now you're bringing somebody in who's qualified to work on 120 volt AC electrical. They have to take the fixture down, unwire it, wire in a new one, and put it back up. Well, that's terrible. And if it's a 6-year lifespan to 25 years, if they're saying you're going to get 25 years, let's say everything is perfect and you get 25 years out of it. Do you really think 25 years from now when that fixture fails, you're going to be able to pull it off the ceiling and find one that matches all the rest of them that you installed in your unit? No, it's not going to happen. It's just not. It's cheaper to replace a light bulb, and you'll be able to... Who cares if it matches or not? It's a freaking light bulb. It's covered up by the fixture. It doesn't matter if it looks the same as the rest of them in the unit. If the color temperature is right and it's putting out the right amount of light, who's going to argue? So just replacement cost doesn't work out. Overall savings doesn't work out. ROI is probably 0 or negative, maybe even worse than a CFL. You still have to recycle those monstrous things with an electronics recycling program that charges by the pound. Pretty sure that those light fixtures weigh a lot more than the light bulb does. And they take up a whole lot more room in that container, one way or the other. If you're not doing by weight, you're doing it by volume. And if that thing fills up faster, that's not their problem, that's your problem. You're paying for it either way. So just all in all, avoid CFLs, avoid integrated LED fixtures, use LED light bulbs everywhere you can, recycle them properly, reduce your risk of frivolous lawsuits from mercury exposure, reduce the amount of energy you're using versus using CFLs, and save a ton of labor on replacing bulbs versus having to pull fixtures off of ceilings and walls to make your tenants happy. It's good money after bad. It's a mistake. I don't care what anybody says. But if you know different and you can prove it, comment. I will respond. Until then, please like the video, share the video, comment on the video. If you don't want to comment on the video, feel free to drop us a line. The website's armpurchasing.com. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks for stopping in.